This video is brought to you by Squarespace. From websites and online stores to marketing tools and analytics, Squarespace is the all-in-one platform to build a beautiful online presence and run your business. In the past, it was not uncommon for an artist to paint two companion paintings to be displayed together in the home. These were often still lifes and mirrored each other in both scope and scale. What is uncommon is for both of them to be in the studio at the same time. The first of these paintings, by the artist Abraham Bruegel, depicts peaches, apples, and, well, I can't really tell what else because it is so dark. We know that this is fruit, but we can't see much because the old varnish and the surface grime are obscuring the painting. There are some light losses and some evidence of old retouching, probably because of a tear or a deep gouge that required, at the time, the painting be mounted to a board. Unfortunately, that mounting has failed, and the canvas has started to separate, leaving air bubbles throughout the painting's surface, which are tremendously distracting, particularly in a raking light. On the back, we can see the canvas glued to a piece of black board, lots of paper tape used by the previous framers, and an old label depicting the artist's name, a little bit about him, and his birthday and death day. Unfortunately, some of the other labels have been covered over by said paper tape, again applied by the framers when the painting was put into this frame. And that's a problem that, of course, we're going to have to address. The other painting is, surprise, more fruit, but this time depicting grapes and peaches and something in the background. It's really hard to see. This painting appears to be in slightly better condition without any major areas of retouching. There are still areas of bubbling where the painting is lifting, and of course it's profoundly dirty, with a heavy layer of accumulated surface grime and an old discolored natural resin varnish. The surface is better, but it is still not good. There are areas where the deformations catch the light and are distracting. The back is a mirror of the first painting: black board, paper tape, and a label. Now, because there are two paintings in the studio and two conservators, we thought it might be fun to have a little competition to pit Kitt and I against each other and see who triumphs. So let the games begin. Oh, hey, so before we continue with the competition, I want to take a minute to talk about Squarespace, which...
You doing Squarespace again?
Well, I was.
You know, I think these people already know everything you're going to say by heart.
What, that Squarespace is the all-in-one platform to build a beautiful website and host your business?
Yeah, and that they have thousands of beautifully designed mobile-friendly templates.
Yeah, and that with the click of a button, you can expand the website to suit your needs, whether it's adding an e-commerce solution, search engine optimization, online downloads, even scheduling online.
And if you need help, they have online articles, forums, videos on how-tos, and if none of that really works, you can actually talk to a real-life person.
So head over to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/Baumgartner to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. I'm using my little tack puller instead of the pliers just because I want to be different.
Hey, that's mine. No touchy.
All right, well, then it's your turn.
And I'm going to take the framer's tape off the back of my frame. I am adding a little bit of lapinite to the backing paper on my frame. The lapinite will help to reactivate the water-based glue, and I like to use a razor because it's just easier to scrape.
I'm going to use just some water and some cotton balls. I think it's going to come off pretty quickly. Look at that.
Ooh.
Palette knife has a nice edge to it, and unlike the razor blade, I can't cut myself.
I am now going to face my painting because it needs to be removed from the board that it's on, that it's been mounted to. Obviously, I don't need all of this washi, so I'm going to cut it down.
Right on the table surface?
Yep, right on the table surface.
Oh gosh.
Look at that. Fresh scratch for Julian.
So I too am going to be using Japanese mulberry paper. I am going to use all of the little scraps of the thicker paper. Waste not, want not. And it does come off a little bit easier. I'm thinking of future Julian, which normally I don't. So there's really no difference. It's just little scraps. Sometimes we use these smaller pieces when there's really heavy impasto.
That's a lot of paper, Julian.
Well, we'll see if I've made a terrible mistake or if my bet pays off. So we're gonna use the fish gelatin because it has a good tack, but it's not gonna be too much. Put it in a double boiler and then we let it melt.
Okay. You were talking about future Julian, which got me thinking about future Kitt. And because I am using the thinner washi kozo, I want to use a solvent-based adhesive that will hopefully make it easier for me to remove once I decide to take off the facing. So, what you doing, Julian?
Cooking. Mine is all ready, so I can turn off the heat and go face this painting. So the fish gelatin penetrates through the paper really easily, and it gives a really good bond. It'll be interesting to see if you get the same penetration, the same bond using the solvent-based adhesive.
It'd be a shame if a sudden gust of wind came and knocked it off here.
It'd also be a shame if somebody all of a sudden found themselves unemployed.
Yeah. Oh, see? Futility.
But the nice thing about the washi kozo is it really does conform really well to the surface of the painting. I'm not sure that that's something that you'll find with the other adhesive. But it's a pretty small painting, so it doesn't take too much time chasing these air bubbles out.
You think I'm just getting a touch too creative?
No, I mean, you're taking an approach that you think is going to benefit you, which is going to benefit the painting.
So my solvent-based adhesive is just about ready. I'm going to add my solvent to help dilute my adhesive a little bit. I'm going to stir it together.
You're spilling everywhere, Kit.
Just on my pants, Julian. So I have my solvent-based adhesive.
Wait, this is the first time you've done this?
Yeah, I'm just trying a new thing.
Oh,
You
boy.
did that way, I want to do this way. I don't think it penetrates as well as the fish gelatin does.
So you might have to lift up the
Oh.
paper and apply the adhesive directly to the painting's face.
Interesting. Oh yeah. Does that count as a point towards you, or is that just like friendly?
I get the point, but I think the painting is the real winner.
I definitely don't think I'd be able to do this with like more impasto. I think.
Oh no, for sure, because
I-
it's a really smooth painting, you can get away with that.
Yeah. So that's it.
And now, with both of the paintings faced with two different adhesives, we wait. And it's pretty clear that the path that Kitt chose might be superior in this case, because hers is already dry and mine, well, isn't. So, point to Kitt. All right, so now they're both dry. Mine took a lot longer than yours,
Yep.
but look, I got...
Release.
Yeah, it looks like when this dried, it started to put tension and it started to lift up the canvas from the board. So I'm going to take my point for that.
I disagree with your point. I think that the adhesive had already failed and it just needed a little bit extra.
Hater.
So I take away your point. Unlike yours that already started lifting, mine has not. Are we sure mine's on canvas? Yours definitely is.
Yes, Kit, that is on canvas.
You certain though?
Wait, so you're going to, instead of trying to remove the canvas from the board, you're going to remove the board from the canvas?
Yeah, because the canvas is super thin. So I want to at least try and like shave. I want to get as much of the backing board off as I can and then shave down to the canvas.
You're gonna ruin that palette knife. You've already ruined my palette knife.
I didn't ruin it. Don't zoom in on it.
40 years old and it's finally reached its end at the hands of my assistant.
It's totally fine. I'm being hyperbolic. I think I want to remove my labels first because this is going to be a whole thing. So I want to get rid of anything relevant before I make a mess of this.
So how do you feel about your choice to remove the label first?
It's annoying.
So you chose poorly.
I did not choose this painting. It was assigned to me.
Wait, what was that?
I said I love my job.
You thought it was all of these solvents and testing. What did I say it was?
You said it was the most abundant substance in the world.
Kindness?
I'm not so sure that's that abundant.
So it's water, right?
It is water.
Yeah, right. So I was right. So I get the point.
Point for Julian. Now I'm putting the label under weight with a blotter paper so that it can dry without curling up.
Well, that was a good use of 45 minutes.
What's wrong, Julian?
I don't know. The palette knife somehow got bent out of shape.
Have you tried words of encouragement?
So it looks like I am able to go in between the canvas and the board, and hopefully this continues throughout the entire piece. And once I've gotten a little bit up, I can come back with my palette knife and just make some long, slow, shallow passes while lifting up the canvas. So, just like that, painting is separated from the board.
So what are you going to do about the label, Julian?
Oh, the label. I am going to take a different approach. I'm just going to cut them out. And I'm not going to spend too much time worrying about this right now. There are other things that I need to turn my attention to. This I can do while the painting is on the hot table doing a passive treatment. So what was the question? I wasn't listening.
The question is, why is your painting so much easier to remove than mine?
That doesn't mean mine's going to be easier in the long run. Just this step, I get a point. So as Kitt works to take off her board, piece by piece, layer by layer, I think back to all of the dozens, if not hundreds, of paintings I've had to remove in a similar manner. And I have to say, I'm pretty happy that I don't have to do it again. So what's next?
I'm taking off the backing board.
That looks like fun.
It's definitely tedious.
Having to remove a board layer by layer, piece by piece, chipping it off with a scalpel is incredibly time-consuming and frustrating, not to mention tiring on one's hands. But this is Kitt's painting, and she chose this path, so she's got to figure it out. Luckily for her, as she begins to remove it, she discovers that it does come off much easier, and so she is saved from having to toil away for the next several days. All right, so what are you using?
I'm going to use a scalpel to scrape mine off. What about you?
I'm using a stiff nylon brush because I think it's going to be loose enough that this will do it.
Okay. That method seems to be going well.
Yeah, it only works when the glue is really, really brittle and already kind of falling off. The stiff nylon is just enough to agitate it, put some tension on it, force it to break off, but not enough to pull apart the canvas threads like maybe a wire brush would. As Kitt and I both begin to remove the adhesive from the back of these canvases, it's pretty clear which approach is more efficient. I'm just about done and Kitt's barely halfway through, so I definitely get the point. But now I have to wait around for her. So maybe I'll give her a hand. No, she would not have any of it. No, we're done. It's over. No. Shh. I mean, that looks great.
Yeah,
it came off
took a little
really
longer.
easily. Yeah. One thing I did notice, however, is that your canvas is completely flat and mine is wavy, which is probably an artifact of me using a water-based adhesive to face it and you not. So now we can move on to the next step, which is at the hot table.
Yay!
All right, for this step, we can put our competition aside briefly. And we can start to treat these paintings on the hot table. This is mostly for my painting, because yours is pretty flat.
That's right.
I need to get mine flat. But one thing that this is also going to do is going to help draw out some of the residual adhesive that's still on there.
That's still on your canvas because you didn't scrape it, you scrubbed it.
Well, we'll see. And it'll get them flat and it'll prepare them for the next step. So the table is warm, we've set up everything. We've added a little bit of moisture to the blotter paper. We have this release layer here, this green thing, and now we can create the envelope and get cooking. Now, at this point in the competition, we had to pause our rivalry and work collaboratively because there's really only one way to do this treatment on the hot table, and it's not worth experimenting and trying to come up with an alternative. But having Kitt here to help makes it go much faster and it's much easier. Once the paintings have been brought up to temperature and the pressure is sufficient, Kitt can begin working the surface with a piece of balsa wood, which is soft enough to deform against the impasto, yet rigid enough to help remove some of the distortions. After allowing the paintings to cool to room temperature, we can remove them from the mylar sleeve and transfer them to the table in the back, where we're going to press them for a couple of days so that any ambient moisture that was in that canvas is absorbed not only by the blotter paper, but by the gypsum board that it'll be sandwiched in between. And look at us go here, working collaboratively as a team. Point for both of us. All right, so they are now flat. They both look really good.
Mine was flat before we even started.
All right. But now we have to get rid of the facing. Mine with water, because that's what will affect the fish gelatin, and yours with a solvent, because that will affect the adhesive you used. So let's get to it.
Let's do it.
All right, Nurse Ratchet.
I've never used this adhesive before, so I'm not entirely sure what to do, but I'm just going to try what I always do. Is this the big reveal you were waiting for? Sorry, what was the lesson I was supposed to be learning right now?
We'll see.
So far, I like it. Never spoken too soon. But it definitely leaves a ton of adhesive on the face, unlike the fish gelatin, which I think comes off nicely with the washi coat. Could you use this one as like a twofold, like an impregnation?
Not unless you want to bond the
Completely.
The paper to the face,
Gotcha.
kind of permanently.
Okay. Just, you know.
Not that I have any experience doing that.
No, never.
Never. And so now you got to get rid of all of that adhesive.
Mm-hmm.
All right, with a little bit of warm water, I can reactivate the fish gelatin, and that should release the paper off the face.
That's it.
That's it. Impatience is not a virtue here.
Is impatience ever a virtue? I thought patience was the whole virtue.
I don't know. Don't you think being impatient can be a virtue sometimes?
No.
No. I'm doing it wrong.
You're using a palette knife. Oh, look at that paper disintegrate.
Disinter what?
I mean, I don't know what angle you're looking at, but from the angle I'm seeing a lot of fraying. Disinter who?
It's called it being impatient, not letting the... There you go. See? Comes right
Okay.
up. I think in this case, the small pieces of paper where they overlap, it's a little bit harder to get the paper off, which I would have loved to have one large piece of the heavier weight paper, but we didn't have any, so this is kind of just how it goes. So yours definitely comes off easier, you know, it's kind of one sheet. One of the benefits of using the fish gelatin with the washi is that I'm pulling up some of the surface grime, and your adhesive did not do that, will not do that. You can see how brown the paper is when it lifts off some of that surface grime. So right in the middle of the painting?
Yep.
Well, I guess the client's going to have to go ahead once that test spot is done, huh?
This isn't that test spot, Julian. They already agreed. So that seems to be taking off the surface grime really well. I've probably looked at quite a few paintings now, at least 10. And so I have a pretty good...
Wow.
Yeah, it's filthy.
Yeah, look at that.
So I have a pretty good guess when I look at the paintings at this point of what will work and what won't work. So I go in a little bit more cautiously, and then if I need to step it up, I can. But yeah, it's going to clean up really nicely.
All right, well, I'm excited to see.
What you doing?
Well, unfortunately for me, all of this overpaint did not come off my painting as easily as it came off your painting. So I'm going to try to see if I can remove it mechanically.
Is that just because I'm superior at cleaning paintings too, or?
That's a good one.
Point for Kitt?
Point for audacity. The big problem here is that the retouching is standing proud of the painting. It's not so much the color being wrong, because I can correct that with better retouching. It's that it's physically, you can feel it, and that'll catch the light, and so that's really the problem. And I'm really just letting the weight of the blade glide across the surface and trying to make multiple thin passes. It's sharp enough that it kind of slices off the top layer, and then I can come back and do it again and again, as opposed to trying to take it all off in one pass. So I suppose I'm getting my just desserts talking about Kitt having to scrape away all of that paper from the back of the painting, only this time I have to chip away all of the overpaint from the front of the painting. Well, now that we have them both cleaned, and I was able to get some of the retouching off, scraping it off and getting some of the fill-in out. You know, some of it is still there, but at a certain point we just have to leave it and just retouch over it because it's not safe to remove. So at this point we now have to get them structurally sound. They're just loose canvases, so we can't do much with them. And in talking with the client, they had expressed the desire to mount them onto board as opposed to stretch them onto stretchers. So that is what we are going to do now.
Okay.
All right, with the adhesive warmed up and a little bit thinner, although it's pretty thick right now, we'll thin it out a little bit. We can then start applying it to the back of the canvas. I'm using a roller because it gives me a really even finish, and I don't want big pools or an uneven application. And what I'm looking to do here is saturate the canvas and provide a nice even layer of adhesive. Yeah, so I think you're going to need to do a second coat because this board has absorbed it quite a bit.
Yes.
And we want a little bit more adhesive on here, otherwise we're not going to get a good bond. All right, so we are midway through the project. You are woefully trailing in points.
I don't think so. I think it's neck and neck.
Is it though?
Pretty confident.
We'll have to go to the footage. How do you feel about the project so far?
I mean, so far, I really like my painting. It hasn't been too difficult. There doesn't seem to be a lot that I'm going to end up needing to do on it. Compared to yours looks like a lot of work.
Yeah, mine does look like a lot of work. I kind of regret choosing that one, but...
Yeah, I actually really liked using the adhesive instead of the fish glue for the facing.
Yeah.
That was actually because it came off really easily. I'm sure for other situations it probably wouldn't be that easy, but it was really satisfying just to kind of
Yeah, well,
peel
one
it
of the
off.
interesting things about kind of taking slightly different approaches is we get to kind of see what is and isn't working. And I've done all this a million times, but for you, I think it's really helpful to kind of compare and contrast a lot of the different techniques that we have available to us. Even for me, it's helpful to kind of sometimes revisit and kind of audit the way that I do things, because I haven't used that adhesive for facing in a very long time, but now I'm thinking maybe there are places where I can. So, you know, it's just kind of interesting to revisit the way you work every once in a while and to see where you can make improvements.
Yeah. And I'm definitely really excited too, because like when I first started working here and I asked you a lot of like why questions, a lot of esoterics.
Oh my God, the questions.
I was just very curious. But like
As you should be, which is why you were here.
yeah, but I was like, I felt like this was like the first time when I was actually thinking a little bit more like critically about the process. And so like, I don't know, it was just kind of exciting to see how far I've come in the past couple of years.
Yeah, well, there's a certain evolution from kind of doing what you were taught, the way you were taught, into sort of kind of carving your own path. And, you know, I experienced the same thing with my father. There were things that I learned that I did for years until I started saying, well, why am I doing this? Maybe there's a better way for me. Not necessarily a revolutionary way, but maybe changing certain things around made my working process more efficient or just better. And so, you know, that's part of the evolution. And I'm glad you're finally getting there.
It's about time.
Yeah, but we do have more work ahead. And I think, you know, there's going to be less chance for deviation going forward because some of the stuff that we're going to do is a little bit more rote, but it doesn't make it any less important. And I'm excited to see how they come out.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been really responsive thus far. So I'm hoping that, you know, the next chapter is as cooperative. I say that and I'm like, oh no.
Yeah.
Knock on Formica.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it should be interesting. I'm looking forward to hanging out in the winner's circle and yeah, getting the clients' feedback on how great my conservation was.
Well, you do have a lot of work, a lot of ground to make up if you think you're going to be on the top step of the podium. And I am not going down without a fight. So on to the next chapter. Good luck. You're going to need it.